Hello and welcome to this virtual presentation. My name is Razvan Ghita. I'm a PhD student from the University of Amsterdam and I'll present my job market paper called Do Supervisors Reward Observable Luck? I'll begin with the research question of the project and then I'll explain what I mean by each term and why I think it's important to study this question. The research question is, do middle-level supervisors reward observable good and bad luck in their discretionary evaluation decisions, and how does this affect employee behavior? By good and bad luck, I mean factors that affect employee performance but employees have absolutely no control over. An important consideration when companies design incentive systems is reducing the weight of luck in employee compensation. This is partially because by rewarding luck, companies decrease the link between employee contribution and employee compensation, which in turn can decrease employee motivation. A theoretically viable solution to reducing the weight of luck in employee compensation is allowing supervisor discretion in evaluating their direct subordinates. Allowing discretion should reduce the weight of luck in employee compensation because supervisors have access to additional non-contractable information. For example, a supervisor can directly observe how long employees work and whether uncontrollable events have affected employees' performance. We expect supervisors to use all information available to them to reduce the weight of luck in employee compensation, partially because they have an incentive to do so. Despite these strong theoretical predictions, we sometimes observe that supervisors seem to reward luck in their evaluation decisions. Previous literature argues that this is the case because the effect of luck on performance is unobservable. That is, supervisors reward luck because they cannot completely understand how luck influences employee performance. In this study, I examined whether supervisors reward observable luck. That is, do supervisors reward luck when they completely understand how luck influences performance? Examining this question is important because if supervisors reward observable luck, then we can conclude that, contrary to a common assumption from previous literature, supervisors don't always use all information available to them to reduce the weight of luck in employee compensation, which in turn suggests that allowing supervisor discretion may not always reduce the weight of luck in employee compensation, even if supervisors have access to additional non-contractable information. I also examine how employees react when supervisors reward observable luck. Examining this is important because while we know a lot about how supervisors evaluate employees, we know relatively less about how employees react to these evaluations. As a brief summary of the paper, I find that supervisors reward observable luck. As I explained earlier, this suggests that supervisors don't always use all information available to them to reduce the weight of luck in employee compensation, which in turn suggests that one of the theoretical benefits of allowing discretionary evaluations is lower than we previously expected. I also find that most supervisors and employees find it fair for both good and bad luck to be at least partially rewarded. This finding expands our understanding of how fairness concerns influence discretionary evaluations. Previous literature has documented that supervisors find it fair to reward employees only for factors they can immediately control. I find that supervisors and employees can also find it fair for completely uncontrollable factors to be at least partially rewarded. Although I initially expected that because of employees' self-serving fairness concerns, supervisors will reward good luck more than they punish bad luck, I find the opposite. In my study, supervisors punish bad luck more than they reward good luck. This finding suggests that employees' self-serving fairness concerns are not as detrimental to discretionary evaluations as we previously expected. Finally, I find that employee contribution is lower when supervisors reward observable luck after employees learn how supervisors evaluate them. This finding suggests that company can increase employee motivation by implementing control systems that decrease the weight of luck in employees' discretionary evaluations. Moving on to the theory section, my first prediction is that supervisors will reward observable luck. I begin by explaining the reason why we shouldn't observe that supervisors reward observable luck. This is because rewarding luck decreases the link between employee contribution and employees' bonus expectation, which in turn can decrease employee contribution. Because generally supervisors receive a higher bonus when employee contribution is higher, supervisors should not reward observable luck because doing so could cost them money. Consistent with this is the controllability principle, which states that we should only hold people accountable for what they can control. The logic behind the controllability principle is that if individuals can have no effect on an outcome, it serves no useful purpose to hold them accountable for that outcome. Despite this, I expect that supervisors will reward observable luck because they find it fair to do so. Some people have consequentialist views of fairness. That is, they find it fair to reward outcomes instead of the actions that led to those outcomes. Supervisors with consequentialist views of fairness will find it fair to reward employee performance instead of the employee contribution that led to that performance. Because employee performance is partially affected by luck, supervisors with consequentialist views of fairness will find it fair to partially reward observable luck. For example, a supervisor who receives a higher bonus because one of their employees was lucky might find it fair to share some of the benefit of that good luck with the lucky employee. Therefore, I expect supervisors with consequentialist views of fairness to reward observable luck because they find it fair to do so. Diverse streams of literature find evidence consistent with the idea that many people have consequentialist views of fairness. Therefore, my first prediction is that supervisors will incorporate observable luck in discretionary evaluations. I want to spend a little bit more time here and explain why testing this hypothesis empirically is important, despite the fact that previous literature finds that people reward luck when evaluating others. This is because decision makers from previous literature did not have an incentive to ignore luck, while in contrast, middle-level supervisors have an incentive to ignore luck if they believe in the controllability principle. That is, by ignoring luck, supervisors could increase employee contribution, which in turn could increase their own bonus. We know that in this situation, incentives are important because when people have an incentive to ignore luck, most people ignore luck to maximize their own payout. Therefore, it's important to empirically test whether supervisors will reward observable luck or whether they will ignore their consequentialist fairness views to possibly maximize their payouts. My next hypothesis predicts that supervisors will reward good luck more than they punish bad luck. This might be the case because employees have self-serving fairness perception. That is, like most people, employees find an action more fair if that action benefits them than if it doesn't. Because of this, employees could consider it fair to be rewarded for good luck and unfair to be punished for bad luck. In turn, supervisors will incorporate employees' fairness perceptions in their evaluations. The reason why supervisors care about what employees find fair is because by offering evaluations that the employees would consider fair, supervisors decrease the probability that they will be confronted after their evaluation. Because confrontation with the employees are psychologically painful for supervisors, they will try to avoid them by rewarding observable good luck more than they punish observable bad luck. Finally, I turn to how employees will react to supervisors' evaluation and examine how employee contribution differs when supervisors reward observable luck. On the one hand, rewarding luck reduces the link between employee contribution and the expected bonus, which should decrease employee contribution. On the other hand, rewarding luck could be considered fair by employees with consequentialist views of fairness. This in turn can increase employee contribution because we know that evaluations that are considered fair are better at motivating employees. Additionally, rewarding good luck and sheltering from bad luck could be perceived as a gift from supervisors, which could increase employee contribution because they want to reciprocate the nice gesture from the supervisor. Because I cannot predict which of these effects will have a stronger influence on employee contribution, I propose a research question. Is employee contribution lower when supervisors incorporate observable luck in discretionary evaluations? I tested these predictions using an interactive online experiment. I recruited 258 Enter workers to either assume the role of a supervisor or an employee and interact with the same other participant for 8 periods. At the beginning of each of these 8 periods, employees decide how hard they want to work, that is, how much they want to contribute to company value. The task in this experiment is that every period a random ball is drawn from a bag that contains both winning and losing balls. If a winning ball is drawn, then company profit is high, and if a losing ball is drawn, then company profit is low. The employee can contribute to company value by adding additional winning balls in this bag, which increases the probability of a high company profit. Because effort is generally considered to be costly, buying additional winning balls decreases the payoff of the employee. After this, the supervisor decides how much bonus to allocate to the employee. Two things are important to note here. First, the supervisors don't pay this bonus out of their own payoff. Instead, they just decide how much money the company will transfer to the employee. And second, supervisor's bonus is higher when company profit is high rather than low. Therefore, supervisors have an incentive to use their bonus to motivate the employees to buy as many winning balls as possible. Finally, employees observe their bonus and can decide to confront their supervisor. A confrontation reduces the payoff of both supervisors and employees. Therefore, supervisors also have an incentive to allocate a bonus that will not cause the employee to confront them. In this experiment, I manipulate the information that supervisors see when allocating their bonus. In the outcome plus contribution condition, supervisors observe both how many winning balls the employee bought and the company profit level. Because employees can only affect company profit through their decision to buy additional winning balls, in this condition, information about company profit only informs supervisors about how lucky the employee was. This is because between an employee who buys 3 additional winning balls and gets a low company profit and an employee who buys 3 additional winning balls and gets a high company profit, there's absolutely no difference except that one employee is luckier than the other. Because of this, I'm able to test all my predictions about how observable luck is integrated in discretionary evaluations by examining how company profit influences the bonus decision in the outcome plus contribution condition after controlling for employee contribution. I also run a condition in which supervisors only observe employee contribution, and the purpose of this condition is that we can observe employee contribution when supervisors don't reward luck because they cannot observe it. Moving on to the results section, my first hypothesis is that supervisors incorporate observable luck in discretionary evaluations. This graph presents how bonus varies with employee contribution and with the company profit level in the outcome plus contribution condition. H1 will be supported if I find that supervisors allocate higher bonuses when company profit is high rather than low after controlling for employee contribution. This is indeed what I find in this graph and in regression analysis. Therefore, I conclude that H1 is supported. Specifically, supervisors incorporate observable luck in discretionary evaluations. In the theory section, I argue that supervisors will reward observable luck because they find it fair to do so. Consistent with this, I find that in the post-experimental questionnaire, most supervisors and employees report consequentialist views of fairness. That is, they find it fair for company profit to be at least partially incorporated into evaluations. Moreover, supervisors who report consequentialist views of fairness are more likely to reward luck than supervisors who don't report consequentialist views of fairness. My next hypothesis is that supervisors reward observable good luck more than they punish observable bad luck. I define good and bad luck by examining the difference between the expected outcome of an action and the actual outcome of that action. Based on this definition, employees who obtain a low company profit despite making choices that were more likely to result in a high company profit, I classify as having bad luck, and employees who obtain a high company profit despite making choices that were more likely to result in a low company profit, I classify as having good luck. Consistent with this definition, we would call someone who buys a lottery ticket and wins lucky, while we wouldn't call someone who buys a lottery ticket and loses unlucky. H2 would be supported here if I find that company profit influences bonus more when employee contribution is low rather than high. I find the opposite. Company bonus only influences employee bonus when employee contribution is high. This finding does not support H2 and suggests that in my study, supervisors punish observable bad luck more than they reward observable good luck. I propose that this is the case because supervisors integrate employees' fairness concerns in evaluations as a form of reciprocity. Specifically, although supervisors anticipate that employees would find it fair to be rewarded for good luck, supervisors choose to not integrate employees' fairness concerns in evaluations when employee contribution is too low. I find evidence consistent with this explanation in the post-experimental questionnaire. In there, I asked supervisors whether they wanted to allocate the bonus that the employee would find fair. And I find that supervisors are more likely to consider what the employee would find fair in their evaluations when employee contribution is higher. Again, this suggests that supervisors integrate employees' fairness concerns in evaluations as a form of reciprocity. Finally, I turn to how employees react when supervisors reward observable luck. To examine how employee contribution differs when supervisors reward observable luck, I examine the difference between employee contribution in the outcome plus contribution condition, where supervisors did reward observable luck, and the contribution only condition, where supervisors didn't reward luck because they could not observe it. I find that across all the periods, employee contribution does not differ between the two conditions. However, I find that in the last 4 periods of the experiment, employee contribution is higher when supervisors don't reward observable luck. This finding suggests that rewarding observable luck decreases employee contribution after employees learn how supervisors evaluate them. In conclusion, I start with the research question: do middle-level supervisors reward observable good and bad luck in their discretionary evaluation decisions, and how does this affect employee behavior? I find that supervisors reward observable luck, which suggests that supervisors don't always use all information available to them to decrease the weight of luck in employee compensation, which in turn suggests that allowing supervisor discretion doesn't always reduce the weight of luck in employee compensation, even if supervisors have access to additional non-contractable information. I also find that most supervisors and employees find it fair for both good and bad luck to be at least partially rewarded. This finding expands our understanding of how fairness concerns influence discretionary evaluations. Previous literature has documented that supervisors find it fair for only factors that employees can immediately control to be rewarded. I find that supervisors and employees can also find it fair for completely uncontrollable factors to be at least partially rewarded. I also find that supervisors do not incorporate employees' self-serving fairness concerns when employee contribution is low. This suggests that employees' self-serving fairness concerns are not always as detrimental to discretionary evaluations as we previously thought. Finally, I find that employees' contribution is lower when supervisors reward observable luck after employees learn how supervisors evaluate them. This suggests that company can increase employee motivation by implementing control systems that reduce the weight of luck in discretionary evaluations. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to meeting you soon.